Hi everyone, this is Nicky Jameson here, and I'm a digital artist. So by now, if you've watched my videos, you probably know that I'm back here with another demo. And today we're going to be looking again at Rebelle 6, and I'm going to be playing with some watercolor. And what I'm going to be doing is playing with some watercolor mixing, just to see what mixing the colors is like. And unlike one of my previous videos where I did this on several layers, I am actually going to be doing this mixing on one layer. So all this comes by playing with colors in Rebelle, making different settings, and just seeing what the program can do. So as always, it's a lot of trial and error, but really I'm just going to play around and see what kind of color mixing we can get using the oil and watercolor color pigmentation. So as you can see, where I have been playing around, I'm just going to select Alt Select here. You can see that my colors are mixing here. Now I'm going to take a step back, and I've used a variety of papers, and my favorite paper in actual fact, which I have actually used on this particular example, my favorite canvas is actually one called Color Dust. I had tried it before and I'm back to trying it now because of all the papers that I've used so far. This is one of the best. So if you haven't got this one called Hot Pressed Dust and Hot Pressed Color Dust, you can check them out in the Rebelle store. I'm sure they are still there. They're very nice textured papers, and I really love them for watercolor and gouache. So you can see the water flowing here. Let's go and look at my settings, and I'm going to do this on a new layer. I'm going to use the flat brushes just because they give a broader spread of paint mark. I'm going to use them at varying sizes, but I'm going to put it around sort of around 50% or just under, and I'm going to keep the water fairly high because the amount of mixing you get and what you get from the watercolor really is dependent on the water in your brush. Okay, so I'm going to use the flat brushes, and we're going to, as opposed to the round, and we're going to see what happens. I'm also going to use the oil pigment colors here along with my color wheel, and I will keep the pigment mixer, so this button here, I will keep it on, which means I will not be using blend modes, because you can either use the pigment mixer or you can use blend modes. You can't use both, and I like the way that the color mixes with these blend modes. So we'll see what happens. I am going to turn on this particular the top layer and turn off my bottom layer. Now the other thing I want to mention to you is when you do watercolor in Rebelle, and I'm just going to make this a small canvas. I should mention that this is a fairly small canvas. I keep it small because it tends to make the watercolor, in my experience anyway, a bit better. But you will want to look at your visual settings. Typically I have the absorbency high, but I've reduced it in this case to 3. That's the absorbency of the paper. I've left the re-wet at 5, and the texture influence, I've left it middle of the road, and I have left my moved my edge darkening to 5, but I think I'm going to make that about 6 just to see. And my diffusion speed I reduced to 4. I keep my drip size relatively small, and I will look at the tilt. I just want to find out how the watercolor works. Okay, so let's just play with some paint and color. So I'm going to the flat 2. I'm going to make this a pretty big brush, and I'm going to just start from the top. And I'm going to start with this phthalo blue here. I think it's phthalo blue. And I'm really just going to make some random marks and then mix them with colors in my palette. Oh, I think that's a bit too big. So I'm gonna, but we've got this stroke here. So I'm going to mix this stroke with a little bit of cadmium red. I think it's cadmium red, ceridium red. It's a bit, my color palette is a little bit small here, so you'll have to just bear with me. I don't want to have it extend over my canvas, so you can see what's happening here. I found that I get a very different outcome, and I'm going to reduce the opacity of this brush so that it's mostly water. So I'm just adding water here. Now you can wet the canvas, you can dry the canvas as much as you want by using the fast dry or the dry layer, but I just want to see what happens when these colors work together. Okay, so I'm not really drawing any, good, bad, indifferent conclusions. I'm really just playing around with this. So I'm going to increase the opacity back up for this brush, and you can see that this is mixed. This color has mixed in. Now, let's see. I don't want that. This is experimenting. So let's see if we can add another color in here. I'm going to reduce the size of this brush a wee bit. So I've added this, I believe it's a burnt sienna here. It might actually be a golden ochre. So if I just add some color there and add some titanium white, I'm just putting it in, just putting this color in just to really see how it mixes. Okay, so you can experiment and see what these colors do together, and depending on how much you actually put. So for example, if I add a little bit and don't make it so much of a stroke, you can see how it blooms out. But if I turn off the pigment mixer, you can see the difference. Okay, so the pigment mixer is a really good idea to have on, and you can see that it is actually mixing here. So the red and the blue is making purple. Okay, so let's try with ceridium green. Let's put this at the top here, and then I'm going to mix in some more of the blue, maybe this cobalt turquoise. And sometimes you might want to make your stroke a little bit smaller. I'm going to reduce the opacity, make sure the water's up, and just take it right down here. So really all I'm doing is I'm really just adding water to this stroke. Just remember to make your brush opacity go up again. So you can see it's flowing here. And we'll just add a little bit here. So you don't really want to cover the entire stroke. And don't forget, this is digital watercolor. It's pretty good considering it's digital watercolor. The other thing you can do is to actually go to your blend brush, and you can actually blend some of this color. I just like to see, what it actually does. Now, I used some other colors here, so I'm just going to go back to this blue, and let's have this color in it. Just a little bit. And maybe a lighter shade of that color. These are all in the in the oil color palette, and I believe there are some watercolor. I've got watercolor pigments as well. But the watercolor pigments don't all have the, they do have the name. I like to see the name of the colors, and if they don't have them, I just tend to go back to the, so this is titanium white, I believe. Just put that in with some water and low opacity. And you can actually turn the water on here, and you can wet the canvas. Go back to my watercolor brush. I'm going to take the opacity up and make my brush a bit smaller. I'm going to go with this umber, So I put the I haven't got show water here, so I can't actually see how far it's you know, showing, but you can see that it's got a different appearance there because the canvas is already wet. Okay, so you can see, as I put a lighter shade here, that this is mixing. You can also use your eraser. I'm just using the blend here just to blend in this colour. And I think it's probably easier to use a bigger brush, but it just depends on what you want to do, and you can use any of those brushes. So if you look at the top, you can see that this is blended in quite nicely. I like this. It's almost like a glaze kind of mark here, but I'm going to sort of do some more. So I'm still using the flat 2. I'm going to just take this right across, and we're going to go with this yellow again. I think this is lemon yellow, and then I'm going to put in this permanent green. I'm going to add some titanium white to that. Let's make it a bit smaller. And let's even try adding a little bit of Perolean red. This is down the side. So I just open my bottom layer there. And if I close my top layer, you can see that with time, the colours have blended quite nicely. Now that may be because of the different colours I used. It may be because of the time I gave it. It could be down to a few different reasons. I'm going to just go over this a little bit. Put some blue here. Really just letting it blend in. And I think you don't have to just go across either. You can go down. That brush is a bit big. So if I go down like this, and I add more of this red, Perolean red, and some titanium white. The water's fairly high, so we should get it mixing fairly well. Okay, so we can see that it's mixing. You can also use paint and blend. And let's just take it up a wee bit. And I'm painting into this with, this will be water. Okay, and if I paint on here, because I've got no paint, no colour in the brush, this will be water, or just as near to water. And so you can sort of take that and just add water to these areas. Like if I made my drip length a bit longer, I'm pretty sure that this is going to, it will really take off. So let's try. Oops, let's turn the opacity back up. And then you can just see how the colours work and blend together. Now that's on paint and blend. It's actually different when it's on paint and blend, so now it's beginning to flow now that I've put it back on paint. But I am gonna, just in the interest of time, blend that in a little bit. And then blend the water aspect of that. I'm just dabbing here in the actual paint, which probably remains wet until you dry it. Okay, so this is something to play around with. Definitely you get some nice some nice paint laid down here. Okay, and you can just have a lot of fun with mixing. So I've tried this on 2 different layers, of course. So this is the layer that is still working at the moment. Let's close that. Oops, I want to open that one. This is the layer that is my top layer. If I want to go back to my bottom layer here, my layer 1, where this is now mixed. This yellow and blue is now mixed. If I just take the opacity up. Okay, and it's now flowing quite nicely, and also it could be the way I did my brush strokes. I wasn't recording at the time, so as soon as I start recording, I start second guessing. So, even though it is trial and error, it's kind of, when you're still experimenting, you just don't know what's going to come out. And change the opacity of your layers to let as much as you want show through. Okay, so if you want to do that, that is obviously an option. But these are individual layers. The absorbency is not that high, so that has an impact. But once again, try the papers, try the different colors, and just have fun with playing with this. It's really quite neat, and you can get some really nice abstract marks with this just by playing with it. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. Perhaps I will catch you in another video. Happy painting. Bye.